Hey YouTube, I want to talk today about some ideas to use in your mudroom and how to better make use of space in a mudroom. So we have this entry here from the garage, and that's usually the way we come into the house, not through the front door. And of course, there's not very much room in here. And there's like a little bathroom on the side, and then that door then goes into the rest of the basement. And there's probably like 4 feet that we have of usable wall space for 2 adults and 3 kids clothing. And of course you can see even now it's not even all the winter stuff, all the winter jackets and everything are put away already. And this area just gets real cluttered, and the kids have their school bags and shoes and everything in there. So we tried to put our heads together and figure out the best way to use the space that we have. So I'm trying to get it to show up on the camera. There's a little bit of a wall here, but the problem is when you come in, you kind of when you walk in, you kind of come in this way, right? You can't, nobody opens the door and then just walks straight through the doorway, right? You kind of open the door part way and walk in at an angle. So we didn't really want anything on this wall, but we do have this other wall that is not quite 4 feet across, but we said, okay, well, what can we do on this wall? And the one idea that we came up with was to just put up a pegboard, because little kids especially have trouble with hangers, and honestly they kind of come in and just throw their coats on the floor, and we end up hanging them up. So now we can put pegs on the pegboard sticking out kind of at kid height, and they can just come in and hang their coats up and hang up their backpacks or whatever they happen to have. And there'll also be enough room on the top for my wife and I to hang up our coats as well. So they actually sell pegboard that's already white. So I picked up this 4x8 sheet of pegboard. It's white on one side, and of course, on the other is just the normal dark color, brown color. But the idea is I'm going to cut this down to size and then and hang it up. Now I kind of thought, well, we're going to have to use furring strips and all that. But if you haven't looked at it lately, I'll show you something I realized when I was at the store. They sell these pegboard anchors, so you don't need a furring strip. You actually just drill a hole in the wall and you pop this thing in, and it's got little spacers in there to keep the pegboard away from the wall, so you can still insert your hooks and everything. And these things are pretty cheap. These you get 9 to a pack, and it was like $3 a pack. So if you think about all the money you'd spend on buying, 1x2s or some other kind of furring strips, and still having to attach those to the wall and so forth, it's quite a cost saving. And then I picked up a couple of packs of these kind of hooks that are 2-inch hooks, and we'll just put right into the pegboard. And there's like 4 in a pack, and these are a couple bucks, I think $2, $2.50 or something for a pack of these. So pretty inexpensive way to use get some extra space out of your mudroom. This 4x8 sheet of plywood I think was about $16. Alright, so we're back. You can see I cut that big piece of pegboard down to size, and I kind of just fit it in here. I've got some wood to try and prop it up until I get it positioned. But I think what the idea is now is you're supposed to position it in the wall, and see it's not quite hanging straight, so I need to kind of position it so that it's exactly the way it should be. And then what you do is you take a nail at each corner of the pegboard, and you kind of pound that in to make a mark in the wall, and that then becomes your guide for drilling the anchor in. So that will be my next step. All right, so next step in the process, I trimmed the pegboard, and because my wall wasn't quite square, I had to trim just a little bit off of it again to take into account, one side of the wall wasn't perfectly flush. So then the next thing, which I didn't show on tape, but the next thing was, you just kind of position the pegboard, and then you put nails in at all the points where you're going to put these anchors, and they say every 22 holes. So on mine, it ended up being 4 rows high and 3 rows across. And I'll kind of show you what these things look like. So you have to, you put your, you hammer your nails in when your pegboard is positioned, and then you pull the nails out, and then where all your nail holes are, you drill a regular hole with a 5/16 bit, and you end up with these holes where these are now going to be where your anchors are going in. So this is what the anchor looks like. Let me take it out, and I should have a better background here. This door is a gray background, so I think it'll. So this is what the anchor looks like, and so what you do is you kind of take it, fold it in half like this, so it kind of is a almost like a nail looking, and it's kind of pointed, and then you just push it into one of your holes like that. Kind of get it started. And you can kind of tap it with a hammer until it's the bottom lip is flush. Okay, so now the idea is, since you've got this thing, I'll switch back to the different background. So now you can imagine inside the wall, come on now, the camera's not focusing. So inside the wall, you've got something that looks like this. So you've just hammered this thing into the wall. So now what you do is you take this black key that they give you, and you push it so that it pops this thing out, and your wall, your drywall, is here, and now this thing is pulling up against the drywall, so it won't come out. So you got to use this black key, and I have to say, using it is somewhat of a challenge. So I'm going to show you up here where my other hole is. I'll bang this guy in, and I'll show you how you pop it out with the key. Okay. So the way that I've found the best way to do it, you kind of use your fingers, and it makes kind of a popping sound. Now this one, let me see if I can scroll down here to the next one. Not sure if this really shows up good on camera or not, but you kind of use, whoops, damn it, Jim. So now I've kind of put that key in there, and then you kind of use your thumbs to just kind of push until it pops. Ah, you hear that? That was that thing popping behind the wall. So it's, I think it's in there pretty solid now. I mean, you can't pull it out for sure, but you know, and again, this pegboard isn't going to be holding a tremendous amount of weight. So let me finish up the rest, and then I'll show you the end product. There's one other thing I forgot to mention earlier, and I'm not sure it was clear, but you might ask, when you're installing these anchors, what happens if you happen to hit a stud? Well, the instructions tell you to drill a hole that's, you know, like 1.5 inches deep, which would be, you know, this length between my, you know, between the edge here where it meets the wall and the very, you know, tip. So if you hit a stud, you just pound this in, and then of course it's just like a regular anchor. Of course, if you're on a stud, you don't really need an anchor, but it still acts as if you know, it's an anchor, and then you don't need to use that black key to push it out and lock it, because just when you screw the screw in, it will, you know, lock it against the inside of the stud. So the other thing I wanted to say is, you know, hanging a panel, or, you know, really any kind of sheet good, is difficult by yourself. And I had a helper earlier, but my helper had to go upstairs and take care of the kids. So I constructed this little lever, because this pegboard is not going to be sitting on the floor, but I just used a little piece of 2x2 and like a 1x4, and now it's like a little seesaw. See, so I can lift up that whole panel with just 1 foot, and I can position it. Because this is really one of those jobs where, you know, you basically need 2 people, or you need 3 hands. So, okay, so I've got 3, 3, 3, 3. So I used a total of 12 of these, and now I just need to torque them down a little bit. And because of the way the wall was, it's just a little bit crooked. I'm not sure if it doesn't look good. I've got a little piece of trim to put there, but I think it may end up being okay. So I'm just going to torque these guys down now. And again, when you're tightening them, I found you're not trying to torque this thing into the wall. You're just basically trying to make it so that it doesn't rattle, so it doesn't vibrate. It just has to be flush, because the anchor is behind the wall and it's doing all the hard work, so you don't really have to crank down the pegboard. Alright, so there we go. Got a nice place to hang your members only jacket. And I'm using these little guys. And I don't know, I think it's okay now. I will, you know, just zoom in a little bit. Sorry about that. It's alright, we'll fix it in post. Alright, so one thing I'll just say about this pegboard, I don't know, if I would do it again, I'm not sure I would buy the pre-painted white, because, you know, it seemed like I was so gentle with this, and before I made any cuts, I taped along the, you know, where I was going to run my saw blade, because I didn't want any tear outs, and that seemed to work pretty good. But this, you know, this white paint seems to flake off, and it just kind of makes me wonder about its long-term durability. So then, of course, you could paint it, right? You could just paint over it, but, you know, if you use a roller or something on this, you know what happens is the paint goes into the holes. So it's almost like you have to spray it if you want to paint this thing. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to work. The only other thing I noticed, and you know, my wife and I had kind of talked about it, but I think there's a potential issue, especially with children. And issue is, especially if you have real little kids, So if I put a hook down here, you know, like for a kid's jacket, and certainly that will work. And here's a, here's a kid's jacket I can hang there, and you see it's up off the floor. The only problem is this hook is about at eye level for a toddler, you know, and I'm just not sure if that's really the best idea. If you got little kids that can kind of, you know, get in here and kind of run around a little bit. So the one idea I had was to take like a 1x4 shelf or something and just make a little shelf right above the hook. That way there's no way a kid can get there, can poke their eye out with this, and just run a shelf across. And then I guess, you know, your shelf could collect mittens or sunglasses or whatever too. So that's one thing we may do. I'm just, you know, you're always worried about little kids, and you think about, well, what possible accident could happen with a toddler. Believe me, it'll happen, and I'll find a way to make it happen. But anyway, that's this project. I hope you found it useful, and I think it's going to really help our mudroom make a more efficient use of space, because now we have room across the top for jackets, and you know, we can do all kinds of things here which will really free up this side, and maybe use this longer area here for snow pants and snowsuits and that kind of thing. And I think I'll probably take out this bottom, you know, half coat rack for kids and just take that out completely, and then put like those little wire mesh cubicles for shoes and gloves and all that stuff. So I may eventually edit this or make a part 2 for this video if everyone is, or if there's enough interest. Okay, thanks a lot.